Hi there, it's Balthazar here. This is my very first YouTube video and it's a beautiful misty morning here in Amsterdam, and today I'd like to share two of my favorite traditional Lenormand spreads. These two spreads have seen a fair bit of use here in the Netherlands and Belgium. You see them mentioned often by Belgian, especially Belgian Lenormand authors writing in Dutch, and in fact Erna Drusbeck, very famous Belgian cartomancer, you may have heard of her. She wrote the first major treatment, I would say, on the Lenormand. I think that was in the early 80s. And in that she says that the 13 card cross spread, the spread that I'm about to share with you, is a very important preparation for working with the grand tableau, right? And I found that to be very true. So I thought I'd share these spreads with you. Now, as you might have noticed, they're both called cross spreads, and that's because they come in the form of a cross. They're a cruciform. And in fact, I would say that the 9 card cross and the 13 card cross are very much interconnected. By mastering the principles in the 9 card cross, by understanding the underlying ideas held within the 9 card cross, you will very easily be able to move on to the 13 card cross, because it only has 4 more cards really, right? But I do find that step is important. Also, you will find that these two spreads are ideal for intermediate Lenormand enthusiasts, intermediate Lenormand readers who have been working with smaller spreads, usually maybe 3, 5 or 7 card spreads, strips, or the 9 card cube, and you'll find that the 9 card cross and the 13 card cross are really great stepping stones for moving on to the grand tableau. That helps you do this in a structured way, in a way that doesn't absolutely fry your brains with options as the grand tableau can do. And one of the things that I really love about these spreads is that they illuminate for us the parts of our life, part of our experience that is entirely not under our control, those things that are out of our hands, our fate, you could say, and then the things that are under our control, those areas of our life where we can take constructive action to change things, to improve things. And in my own experience, I've found that often I'm at war with the things that I cannot change. The things that I can't change in my life are the areas I'm fighting and the most frustrated about and the most fixated on. And often at the expense of the areas where I can take action, the areas where I can make a positive, constructive change. And that's one of the amazing things about these two spreads. They really show us where we can take action and how we can make a difference in our life by focusing on that instead of fixating on the things that we cannot change. So I hope you enjoy these two techniques I'm about to share with you. And please share your experiences with them down in the comments section below. I'd love to hear all about it. Like and share this video if you found it useful, and you can find out more about me and my work if you follow the link down to my homepage, www.balthazarkanja.com. And thank you for watching. Okay, we'll begin with the 9 card cross spread first. Was the principles held within the 9 card cross spread extends into the 13 card cross spread, and then further even into working with the great cross within the grand tableau later on. We begin by shuffling our cards, which I've already done, placing the significator. If it's a male, we place the Lord in the center of the table. If it's a female querent, we'll place the lady card in the center of the table. And we begin laying the cards out in a clockwise pattern, starting at the left. And then with the significator in the center, that would give us a total of 9 cards, right? As you can see, we've got this cross form, and as with most Lenormand spreads, the cards towards the left of the significator in this case will indicate the past. This would be the more distant past, and this would be the present passing into the recent past. Then to the right, we've got the cards describing the future line. Again, more recent future, and then further in the future, this could be said to be the final outcome. And then we have this axis. The vertical axis then has two very important components that are crucial for understanding the method. At the top we have the fate line. These two cards would then signify what is our fate in this situation. These are events that are essentially beyond the querent's control. These are events that are acting upon the querent, and he cannot really change. They are also describing the presence, and this is the present line, but very much these are fated events that are unchangeable. And these are the events that are under control, which the querent has got some control over, and usually the cards that fall beneath the querent in this way, if they're bad cards, if they're negative cards, they are underway to being resolved or will be resolved soon, since the querent has got some control in the situation. Now, Eleanor Drusbeck, in her treatment of the 13-card cross spread and the great cross within the grand tableau, refers interchangeably to the fate cards, what I'm referring to here as the fate line, as karma cards or het lot in Dutch. So het lot in Dutch translates roughly as fate, which is why I prefer to use the term fate line for these cards, since for me karma, speaking about karma in this context, brings in Eastern ideas into a Western system, which I'm not sure is that helpful. And then of course when we're talking about karma, we could get into a mindset that this is punitive, that we're being punished. If there are bad cards here, that we're somehow being punished by these things for having done bad deeds in the past. And I find that clients then can get really quite distressed by that, and they like to then they often want to know why, what they did wrong, if it's really bad, and these kinds of things. So I prefer to use the idea of fate, since that has got a long history within Western thought, and it's a very rich history, and both metaphysically and in terms of using the idea within a reading. Another way of looking at it is destiny. Of course, destiny has got a more positive sound, so if these cards are giving us a very good auspice, a very good reading, then we can talk about a destiny, something that was destined to happen. It's a good fortune. But if it's bad cards here, then we're thinking more in terms of fate. These are events that we don't have much say in, and we just have to accept them. We have got to work with these events in a constructive way. Well, you'll notice in your own readings and your readings with clients working with these two techniques that all the energy in the reading, all the focus, the frustration that a client often feels will be centered at the top of the spread in the fate line. And that's quite indicative of this idea that the things that are beyond our control are often the things that frustrate us the most, right? And I find that my job as the reader is really to redirect the energy and to get clients to focus on the things that are within their control, to focus on the areas of their life that they can make a difference, where they can take action, where they have got agency. Often the realization that once we understand that these things are beyond our control, that we don't have that much influence in changing these events, that can be a great relief. Because 9 times out of 10, when we're reading the cross spread in this way, you'll find in your own readings and with clients that all the frustration, all the energy, and all the focus tends to be on what's happening here. We're at war with what we cannot change. There's a lot of anxiety around here, and often this is showing the most pressing problem, and we are fighting this. And really, it's futile. This can be a very liberating idea to understand that struggling with what is beyond our control, these events are more or less destined to happen, is a futile act, and we have to focus on working with what we can change, and this is where the control line comes in. So here are our opportunities. Here are some of the resources. Or at least we could understand these cards as talking about things that we're on top of, that we've got under control and we don't have to worry about. And certainly this is where the encouragement in the reading comes in. This is where we can find tools and ideas and brainstorm solutions to move forward positively in a constructive way. Looking at this card, this little spread, briefly trying to interpret what's going on here, we've got the stork and the tower there. So there's some suggestion here of changes within an institution, right? So we already have a hint here. In recent past, the querent has been experiencing some changes having to do with an institution. Then when we look at the fate line at the top here, we have the moon and the whip and the birch. So this is giving us the topic more or less. It's saying, well, there's some problems at work. The moon is the career card. These things are stressful. We've got the whip and the birch there. Maybe there's some conflict. There's some resistance in the querent. There is definitely, I would say, looking at this combination, there's probably some sort of restructuring within the organization that this man is, where this man is employed, right? Then again, looking into the future line, we've got the horseman and the mice. So we have news or a message arriving, some information, a new development regarding a loss, right? So this is confirming for us. There is a good chance that this man will be either losing his job in this position. We have the opportunity to look at what is under control here. Underneath the gentleman card, we see the dog and we have the star there. So this man has got friends or a friend that will offer a solution that will come to his aid and will be of some benefit to him now. And I wouldn't be surprised if this person holds a solution for him with regards to this, maybe a different job opportunity or something to that effect. And I would say to the querent definitely to rely on sources of support, seek out friendships, colleagues and that kind of thing that might be able to help him in the situation. And that certainly is where he will have some control, and it paints an encouraging picture that this might be all for the best, right? That there is definitely another opportunity there coming through a friend, and that could be a way out of the situation. The spread also suggests cause and effect relationships. If we look at the cards that mirror horizontally and the cards that mirror vertically. So we would pair these two cards, these two cards, these two cards, and these two cards together to get some insights, right? So we could see here by pairing the tower and the man there, some information coming from an institution or some new development related to his institution, his work, changes that result in loss or changes that result in some loss. It's a confirmation there. And then this paints another hopeful picture. So we see here the moon mirroring with the stars. So that says, okay, well, you know, there might be some changes at work. You might be losing your job. There might be you might be demoted or some other kind of thing happening there. But this brings an opportunity. This brings some sort of solution in the long run. Now we're ready to move on to the 13 card cross and apply some of the principles that we seen before in the 9 card cross and expand it a bit here. Similarly, we start by laying out the cards starting in the past, moving clockwise. And then the 13th card would go on top of the querent's card, the Lord in this case. So this is an actual reading that I had with a client last week, in fact. And I thought it would be a good example to show the mechanics of the 13 card cross spread. So as you can see, the 13 card cross spread consists out of a 9 card cross, and then we have 4 additional cards, 1 in each corner, yeah, giving a total of 13 cards. And again, we have this idea of the fate cards, those cards that fall above the querent's card. These are the fate line or the destiny cards. These are the things that have control over the client, or if it's for yourself, over yourself. And then underneath the querent's card, the control card, so these cards, these 4 cards underneath would be the events and which the querent has control over. Cards to the left would be the past, and cards to the future would be would be the future. To the right, I should say, would be the future. And then we have one final card placed on top of the querent. So Erna Drusbeck teaches this, the position of these two cards in the following way. She teaches that this then is the advice card, and the advice card in this position here gives us more advice to how to turn the situation around for the best. So it's a solution card, sometimes it's called. And then this card she uses as the final outcome. Yeah, and that goes on top of the querent. I've seen other authors in Belgium writing in Dutch switch these two around, and this then just becomes the outcome, the final outcome, and this is the advice card. Personally, I prefer that arrangement. I prefer having this being the advice card going on top of the querent. That to me seems a bit more intuitive, that this would be the final outcome, the future on the far right, and this would be the advice card. But that's really up to you to set the intention as you're doing the reading, as you're doing the shuffling and randomizing your cards, setting the intention, program them to set the positions as you'd prefer them. As I said, I like having the advice card on top of the querent. That to me makes more sense, and then the card on the far right here would be the final outcome. Now, the four cards here form a very important function. They show us, they connect the destiny, they connect the fate or the destiny with the past and the future here, right? So we can then read these as triplets. We can we would read these three cards to see the development of this to that. Then we would read these three cards to see the development, how this connects with that, how this fated event connects with this future event. We see some information there. And similarly down here, we can read the card in the bottom here as the connecting idea or event to these two cards, and so forth. So personally, how I like to work with this reading when I lay it out, I lay out the cards and then I flip these four cards over so that I don't look at them yet. This is my technique. This is not anything that I've discerned from Belgian or Dutch sources. The authors over here in the Netherlands and in Europe that write on the Lenormand. But I like to do this when I work with the 13 card cross. And I start out reading it as a 9 card cross spread. So I'll start with the past, the fate, the control line, and the future. And then that gives me a nice framework to begin building on. I like to do that because then when I add the connecting cards, there's already some interpretive structure that I can just then flesh out and build on too. For me, that's a good technique rather than having all this information come in at once. I like creating some order in the exposition, and it somehow tightens up the reading for me. Your mileage may vary, you might want to do something else, but I'm going to teach you how I do it because it's been useful to me and it might be useful for you. So in this case, the client, this was one of the reasons I love the Lenormand so very much, because it's such an accurate divination oracle. It just hits the nail right on the head. So we laid out these cards. I'm going to put the advice card aside for a moment, and we had the tree and the tower there towards the left. Now, this is a very classic hospital combination right there. This is describes a medical institution, and sure enough, the querent, I said to the querent, oh, you've been to the hospital recently, and sure enough, he'd just been to the hospital, and he was scheduled for surgery, right? And so, not surprisingly, we see the Scythe card right on top of his card as the advice card. So we know already from the get-go, okay, the surgery is a good idea, he needs the surgery, and he shouldn't do that, he should take action, and then of course this triplet of cards, more or less spells out surgery. Good. So there we go. Then above him we've got the lily and the book, and beneath him we've got the clover and the fox. So the clover is a surprise of some sort, some happenstance event, something that happened unexpectedly. And the fox tells that it wasn't a very nice surprise. It was something that, it was some kind of error, something, a bit of a nasty surprise, something that caught him off guard, right? And then at the top here we have the lily, which suggests, in general, we're happy to see that there because it suggests protection. It suggests that it also refers to the skill of the doctor, because in Belgium and the Netherlands often this card is understood to be some kind of professional, a doctor, an advocate, and so on. So we know already, we've established that this man is going to the doctor, is going to have surgery. So we see here the doctor, and we see also here there's something hidden that isn't quite clear yet, indicated by the book, of course. So we could also say, well, this doctor is learned because of that combination there. But for me, this is talking about the unknown, and sure enough, and because of the position here, we've got it in the fate line. Typically, this is something that's bothering the querent, right? So sure enough, the querent is filled with a lot of anxiety about this. Because the information, he hasn't had much information about the procedure, and he had a nasty surprise being to see an anaesthetist, and the anaesthetist kind of put concerns into his head about the severity of the surgery, how much pain there might be afterwards, and so on, and it caught him off guard, and that was somewhat distressing. So it was really this sense of the unknown bothering the client. So then I like to turn over these two cards to get information, right? And now I'm reading this is a triplet. So we've got the garden there with what we now know as the hospital and the book, right? So this is the atmosphere, this is the environment at the hospital, and with the clouds there and in the book there, we can see that the querent is not too happy about the environment at the hospital. I checked with him, and sure enough, he said he wasn't very comfortable there when he'd seen the anaesthetist. It felt, he was feeling very unsettled. And then of course we've got the clouds here with the dark side of the clouds facing towards the querent. It's going to be an ordeal for this client, and the fact that he's not so clear on what's going to happen next, there's feelings of things being unknown. These are things he will have to accept on some level as part of the ordeal of having a surgery that he's never had before, right? So we've got some clarity about what's beyond his control. He can't control the hospital environment, right? It's a state hospital, has to more or less accept what he's given. He has to have the surgery. We can tell that from the Scythe card there, and that it's good for him to have the surgery. He can't delay with that, right? Then when I checked in about him, the nasty surprise about the anaesthetist, we could say to him, well, this was probably a mistake. This was something that he shouldn't worry about too much. Whatever she told him, it's probably not as bad as all that, and not to worry too much. There is, looking towards the right here, we see some support here, a friend giving some support, some protection and guidance here, and checking in with the querent. This would usually be the querent's partner, but this querent didn't have a female partner, so we're getting support here from another female. So that he doesn't need to be too worried about that. Then connecting this triplet, we see here happy surprise, something good happening in the near future and present, having to do with a woman, and in over here, often the child is interpreted, it has the same meanings as English-speaking Lenormand enthusiasts often get. So it's new beginning, it's literally a child and so on. But this can also show someone giving us, nurturing us. It can also show pleasant conversation. It can show getting some kind of support and nurturing, giving our inner child a bit of love, right? So we can see here that there's going to be some happy event that's going to set this right, I would say. So I was able to give the querent some broad outlines about that, and then sure enough, he came back to me, and he'd run into he was doing some shopping, looking for special loose-fitting cardigans to wear for his surgery. It was a shoulder surgery, and in the process of looking for this garment to wear while he was at the hospital, the shop assistant said that she had he explained to her about the surgery, and she said, well, it so happens she'd had the exact same surgery, and on the same shoulder, as it happened, strangely enough, the very exact same surgery. And she put his mind at ease. She said, well, they said it was going to be so very painful, but it wasn't as painful as all of that. And she was back to, on her feet within a week. And then she just, it wasn't as bad as they said. And it immediately put his mind at ease. And he says it completely changed the shape of the situation. So, again, here we have some sort of supportive thing happening with a friend, and it was all there. It was in the cards, even though we weren't too sure who this lady was. We knew there was going to be some sort of benefactor or some angel who was going to help him there. As you can see here, this then becomes the armature. This becomes the skeleton for jumping into the grand tableau, right? Because we would be then seeing this kind of structure applied to the significator within the tableau, and using the same interpretive strategies to interpret the grand tableau, right? What I like about this spread is it doesn't overwhelm us with options as the grand tableau can do. It's rich, we get lots of details, and this is one of the reasons this has become one of my favorite spreads to use with clients and for myself. It gives us lots of details, it's very rich, but it somehow is structured and constrained enough for us to extract that information that we in a useful way without becoming too bogged down with a million options. And you will notice with clients that their concerns, their frustrations will always be kind of squarely situated here, and I find that my job as the reader is really to redirect them, to bring them down to the control area, the events in the control area, and to let them know that these are the things that they can use, these are the things that they should focus on as resources, as possible solutions. And of course, sometimes when we get stuck in a problem, we're so focused on the problem itself, we're missing the area in our life where there is light, where there is room to maneuver, where we can move and change things. And that's really the power of a good reading. It allows us to shift the energy. It allows us to see the situation in a new light that is empowering, that allows us to move forward in a positive and constructive way.